I would say at the end of the day, it comes down to discipline. Like you don't respect yourself enough to change.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Weaponized Body Podcast, where we talk about all things metabolic movement and mindset as it pertains to your health, performance, and recovery. Today, I have a very special guest. I'm super stoked to talk to. We have Dr. Russell Van Maele here. So welcome to the podcast, Dr. Russ.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Ryan. Happy to be here.
Dr. Russ and I have been working together for a period of time here, helping guys in the Weaponized Body Plan and others in my practice optimize hormones and really just optimize their health in general. So, Dr. Russ is an internal medicine physician with a focus on functional medicine, as well as, all things optimizing your health, particularly men's health. So Dr. Russ, I just want to start out by, asking you kind of like what brought you down this path of, becoming a medical doctor, but then getting into the realm of this, functional medicine and hormone optimization.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for the intro. So, I've always grown up pretty healthy, been a jock my whole life. My sports were baseball and hockey, football eventually, but I give it all to my parents. Like they raised us very, very healthy, through our entire upbringing. My parents were always there for us. So I give, they're by far, my mom and dad are my heroes. But I've always been interested in health, and I wanted to combine that. I was all over the place. I wanted to be a physical therapist growing up, and then I wanted to be a nutritionist, and then I kind of evolved into like, no, I want to take the lead. Like I want to be a leader in medicine. And naturally I went to the doctor route, and I went to Michigan State undergrad, and I always had to walk by the osteopathic medicine school. And, I did a few kind of webinar deals where, not webinar, but actually gone in there and do like osteopathic training sessions. And I'm like, man, this is the best hands-on approach to holistic medicine. And then from there, went to medical school, got my butt kicked throughout my 20s. Just that school's hard.
I've heard, yeah.
But met some of my best friends in medical school. Went to residency in Michigan as well, and I initially wanted to be a gastroenterologist.
Really?
Like I loved the gut. I loved everything about the gut and having to do with nutrition and how that influenced disease. And then I had lunch with my medical director of the residency program one day, and he goes, Russ, I can get you into a GI program, but I think you want to follow this guy. And his name's Dr. Eric Bourne out of Parchment Family Practice, just some little family practice just north of Kalamazoo. And that guy really just changed the whole trajectory of where I went in my career, because he was doing everything holistic, functional, IVs, telling people all about food as medicine. And I'm like, wait, this is what I've wanted to do, but you're like actually making it happen in practice. And I'm like, screw GI, that's another 3 years of being specialized. Like right. I'm ready to go. So basically I was like the functional guy in residency. And then I was doing a bunch of manipulation. I loved like getting my hands on some cervical spines and just racking them.
I can relate. For sure.
Yeah. So, and now, the joke is that I do all telemedicine now. So that I'm definitely missing that aspect of, the DO in me definitely wants to get my hands back on people, but I've been able to just really embrace the whole functional practice, and I'm licensed in all 50 states. So it makes, me pretty marketable for a lot of these startups, which has been kind of a great springboard to my career. And I just love talking to people about food as medicine to start.
Mm-hmm.
Just the pillars of health, like nutrition, exercise, stress management, sleep, and sex. Those are always my big five that I talk to people about. And, then we get into the weeds of like, all right, what are your numbers showing? What are some of these more specialized tests that you can run? There's so many diagnostics out there. And I want to blow up primary care. And this is coming from a primary care doctor. I think that primary care is like just BS. Like it's the same old song and dance. Like show up, it's boring. You wait in line, you wait for the doctor who's an hour late because they already saw 100 patients before you. It's this total, quantity over quality medicine. And they really just don't care if you get healthy or not. And thankfully, I have not had to do that my entire career, because my first job that I signed up with was in Kentucky at Wild Health, which was like this total like epigenetics based functional medicine, and it was awesome. I met my wife down there, loved being down in Kentucky, and the rest is history.
That's awesome, man. So there's a lot to unpack there. I really like, the way you put it, the, hydration, nutrition, stress management, training, and sex. Like those are what I call the 5 levers. I guess hydration, sex, I guess there's 6 levers, but those are massive. So let me ask you something. What do you think, obviously that our country is as sick as it's ever been, right? Absolutely. So we have just this epidemic of obesity and people being overweight and just total confusion when it comes to just health in general. So, when somebody comes to see you, Doc, like what's the number one thing that you're advising people on? What's kind of like your favorite person you're seeing, and how are you working with them?
Yeah. Awesome. So I love seeing the black sheep, the people that want to be different. I really, I want to help as many people as I can, but I want the people that are going to be willing to help themselves. I say this phrase all the time. Hey, I'm going to lead you to water, my man, but you have to drink it.
Right.
You got to live it. You got to change whatever you were doing before. It ain't working. Yeah. So you got to fix it. But the first thing I always start with people, I do my introductions every time, right? But why? Why do you care? Right? Because if you don't care, to be honest, with all due respect, I'm not your guy.
Right.
You gotta have a reason why you want to be healthy. So then they're like, whoa, nobody's ever asked me that question. And I go, here's my why. I want to be a great follower of Jesus Christ and the best that I can. That's my purpose in life. Number 2 is I want to be a great husband to my wife, which is constantly a work in progress, which I'm finding out.
Yeah, amen.
I want to be a great father. So I want to, and now I'm finding out that I'm having a daughter later in the year.
Oh, congrats.
Which is mind-blowing because it was a boy on the genetic test.
Wow, really?
The genetic test at like week 9, week 10. My wife did it way too early, in my opinion, but she wanted to know. It was a boy. So I'm like, hey, my son's going to have a brother. We're just going to be this boy family. It was what I expected because I have 3 younger brothers. My dad has 4 brothers. Like, we're just a bunch of Y chromosomes floating around. But I just, right before Christmas was our 20-week ultrasound, and they go, hey, you're not having a boy, you're having a girl. So now, that's a huge driver for me because, I've always wanted to stay fit, but I need to prove to her that I'm the best man in her life, and I want to resemble what she's going to marry.
That's so powerful, man. I have a 4-year-old daughter, so I 100% understand what you're saying. And I want to be able to model the type of marriage that I want her to see, right? For my wife and I to have as well. And the type of man that she aspires to be. I want to set her standards, right? So that's massive. And obviously health is a huge piece of that, right? So that why is just so incredibly powerful. And and similarly, I try to do that with my patients as well,
Yeah.
because, there's no bigger thing to lean on when everything's going wrong than, your faith and your why.
Yeah.
So you're leading with the why, and then, with the people that are like, you're the black sheep, as you put it,
Yeah.
it sounds like you like to take people, on that have personal responsibility, right? Men, women, and whatnot, which is awesome. Are you also taking care of people that are sort of like non-traditional, like they're not relying on the medical system and insurance reimbursement and that kind of thing too?
Yes. I mean,
Mm.
that's the majority. I'm seeing mostly cash people as
Yep.
it is. But the biggest thing when people come to me is, Russ, like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I've
Sure.
been kind of kicked around by the primary care system or Kaiser or whatever health mastermind they have.
Mhm.
And they want something different. And I want to simplify health as much as possible. I tell people all the time, you do not need to make this so complicated.
Right.
If you get on Instagram, you can find 100 different ways to lose weight.
Mhm.
And you got some guy who's jacked that can tell you, oh, drink all the Diet Coke you want.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then you got this guy saying, something completely different. I don't believe in Diet Coke at all. But just there's so much noise
Mhm.
out there. I want to funnel people in and get them focused and get them like just as simple as possible. And I think like I consider myself just like a teacher in this space.
Mhm.
And I think the best teachers, and always the best teachers that I had growing up, were the ones that didn't make it complicated. Like, yes, they know all of the nuts and bolts, but how do they communicate that in a way that actually puts something into action and creates change, and you grow from that? I tell them,
Mhm.
like, all my patients, like, after a couple of years, they know kind of what we're going to talk about because I'm training them to be
Mhm.
knowledgeable about their health so that
Right.
they can, I believe in like the teach a man to fish, don't give him a fish.
Right. That's powerful. Actually, I think the Greek, or is it Latin translation of doctor is teacher, I believe, is
Absolutely.
literally what it means. So
Yeah.
that's amazing. So I did want to get into a little bit about, how you're helping people. Obviously, you're giving people incredible guidance and coaching and uh, teaching them how to live. Now, from the medical perspective, like, what are some of the main things that you're seeing as far as, let's say, like hormone issues, digestive issues? Like, what are some of the main things that you're helping people with?
Yeah. This goes back to the fuel.
Mm.
I always talk about what's your fuel, because the biggest thing that I see from a medical diagnosis perspective is insulin resistance.
Got it.
100%. It's the, in my opinion, it's the first thing that has to be fixed in order to even have the conversation about your low testosterone.
Sure.
Because I tell you, like, hey, yes, you're coming to me because you have low testosterone, or you saw something, a podcast, or you saw X, Y, or Z, thinking, oh man, maybe I have low testosterone. When we basically lift up the hood of your truck,
Hmm.
go, whoa, we got a mess on our hands. Let's fix this. And it's always insulin resistance.
So, what are some of the main, let's say, clinical biomarkers, and what are some of the main symptoms
Awesome.
correlated to that?
So, talking about testosterone, you're going to have low testosterone for
Mhm.
men and women.
Got it.
Same thing.
Mhm.
But from put it into a metabolic category, I like to look at the basics, just like a total cholesterol. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, your whole cholesterol lipid profile. And you can break that down into more that we call the NMR lipid profile, where you're looking at like actually like quantifying those lipids and the sizes of them. But you can tell a lot from a basic cholesterol profile by just looking at the poor man's test of triglycerides to HDL ratio.
Sure.
1-to-1. It's got to be 1-to-1.
1-to-1. Yep.
Because that's your fuel tank, right?
Right.
If you're pouring in fuel, but your tank can only hold so much,
Mhm.
you are just it's going to waste. It's going into body fat, and you're never accessing the fuel that's in your muscles as in the form of glycogen. You're just burning through everything else. And that's why people spin their wheels, and they're never losing weight because they're not fixing the insulin resistance piece. So there's triglyceride to HDL ratio, there's fasting glucose, there's hemoglobin A1C, which I'm not a super huge fan of hemoglobin A1C in general.
Yep.
And then your inflammatory markers. If you got extra fluff, I like to call it, on you, you don't like to be fluffy. But if you're holding extra fluff, you're holding inflammation. And we can quantify that in CRP, high sensitivity CRP. We can quantify it in homocysteine. You're always going to have an elevated homocysteine. And then you're likely going to be aromatizing, meaning taking that testosterone and converting it aromatized to estrogen. And then you get all your symptoms of fatigue. You can't sleep. Sex sucks. Your erections suck. You're just lazy. You don't want to work out. You got no drive for anything. And the same thing goes for women. I don't want to ever I only treat guys. I treat the women too. And it's the same thing. And then with women, the whole estrogen cycle messes up your hormones. It messes up your ovulation. I think it's the biggest cause for infertility right now. And we need to fix it.
Yeah, it's powerful. So in other words, you could just have a simple, biomarker profile, just a basic cholesterol profile where you have your HDLs and your triglycerides, a simple fasting blood sugar, maybe a CRP, and, a basic hormone panel. You could tell a lot about somebody's, picture when it comes to insulin resistance, right? Now, when you say insulin resistance, so this is somebody who's obviously, they have blood sugar dysregulation for enough time where their insulin is starting to become less effective in their physiology, right? So when their insulin's less effective, there's a window there that's still reversible, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So
insulin resistance is reversible.
Right. So Doc, let's talk about where do you see people still able to, reverse that condition, and what are some of the top strategies that you employ with somebody?
Yeah. Awesome. So I will say, I don't care if you're 20 years old or 80 years old, we can reverse your insulin resistance. And for some of my people that I feel pretty loose with or casual with, and they go, Dr. Russ, I can't lose weight. It's impossible. I just kind of sit there.
You reach through the camera.
Yeah. I know. I just kind of sit there. I'm like, all right, let's play a game here. Right. And I know this person by this point. I don't do this on my first call. But I'm going to pick up a helicopter. We're going to put you in it. And I'm going to drop you off on an island, Tom Hanks style. And I'm going to pick you up in 2 weeks. There's a spring right there, so you can get all the fresh water you want. But I'm going to pick you up in 2 weeks. And you tell me if you've lost weight or not.
I love that.
And they always just do this Grinch smile.
Yeah, right. But what about my Diet Coke?
Yeah.
You
got to get rid of the junk. And that's I always start with insulin resistance, with cleaning out the closet. This is man's best friend right here. This is pure reverse osmosis water with added electrolytes to it. I've added the electrolyte enhancement part to it, but clean, fresh water that's mineralized. That's all we need. That's what the body is made up of. That's what you need. And guess what? You can survive on this for a pretty long time.
Right. Yeah.
So it goes into, if I'm getting really aggressive with somebody, I push the fasting button super hard.
Really? Okay.
Oh yeah. And I go, hey, you got to get really, really aggressive, right away. Because what are you waiting for?
Right. Party's over.
Yeah. So I start with fasting. I love talking about hydration first. So my first rule for everybody is don't drink your calories.
Right.
So if you're not drinking water or black coffee or black tea, I don't drink tea, but if you're not drinking black coffee or water, you've got a problem. Right. They're like, well, what about my smoothies? What about my protein shakes? And they immediately, it's going into survival. Like, what can I do? Well, you need to take a break from the protein shakes because they got a lot of crap in them. You got to take a break from the smoothie because you're basically creating this blended sugar bomb that you don't realize that, yes, it's got some kale in it. Great. That's good. You are blending it up to less than a pulp. My Vitamix can make things into like pure liquid.
Right.
That gets absorbed so fast. And we've already talked to you about your fuel tank is like operating up here. You're never tapping into your fuel tank.
Right.
You're just stacking and stacking and stacking, and you're never going to tap into your actual stores.
Right.
First rule, don't drink your calories. Second rule, if you don't know what you're eating, you got a big problem. So you got to eat whole foods. You got to know what you're eating. Single ingredient foods. And obviously I have 40 chickens that I'm looking at out there. My breakfast every single morning is 8 eggs. I crack them every single day, 8. It's just like clockwork. Right. And I can tell you 100% of the ingredients in my breakfast.
Chicken egg.
Chicken egg, right? So that's where you got to start. And that's where I'm like, hey, you got to go through your fridge. You got to go through your pantry. Wherever you get food, you got to stop. If you leave candy out on your table, it's got to go away. Right. Like junk has to be out of sight, out of mind. So clean out your fridge, your pantry, everything, and just eat naturally for a while. You're going to lose weight just alone there because all the extra calories that you don't realize that you're consuming are from processed foods.
Right. 100%. Yeah. It's so simple, right? It's like, I joke about this with my patients too. I'm like, literally, we are so stupid today. Like we have to teach people how to drink water. We have to teach people how to eat. We have to teach people how to move their body. It's literally, we are so like, here's the way I put it. We're just like Stone Age organisms living in space age times, right? And we're just, our bodies are freaking out because it's like, holy crap, all this chemical bomb that we're exposing ourselves to every day in, environment, foods, and liquids. It's just overwhelming. And that's why the mindset piece I find is so powerful, because it's not like people don't know what to eat or how, like people know that a apple's better than a chocolate bar all day. Sure. Water's better than Diet Coke, but we just fail to make these choices because of X. What would you say is like the main thing, like as far as this mindset piece goes? Like where do people just like, how come people can't get out of their own way, in your opinion?
Oh man, if you could answer that question, we would probably be here right
Just now. Go business, yeah.
I'd like to bottle that one up. So I would say at the end of the day, it comes down to discipline. Like you don't respect yourself enough to change.
Ooh, yeah, and that comes with that why piece too, right?
Yeah, it's like I'm doing an audio book called The Diary of a CEO right now.
Yeah, I heard of it.
It's awesome. But one of the phrases that he uses like to inspire change in people is, instead of asking somebody like, can you or are you, will you change? And it inspires us like, oh yeah, I need to actually do something about this. So it's all mindset and it's discipline. And what I tell people for like sugar cravings, because that's basically you're just a dopamine hit. Like that's everything's just a dopamine hit, right? It makes you feel good, it's comfortable, right? You gotta release yourself from all these dopamine hits, and you need a full dopamine detox.
That's powerful. Yeah, man. There's a book I just read recently about that. Dopamine Nation. They talk about a dopamine detox. Because we just become slaves to this world that is literally, if you just accept the fact that there's people way smarter than us that have wired up things to make sure that you consume whatever it is. They know the triggers, right? They know how your brain works. They know how the neurochemicals work and tickle your cravings, right? So,
way smarter than us. And that's I talk about that point a lot. I go, all right, take Coca-Cola, for example. I love to pick on Coca-Cola. They have invested so much money and time and effort and people into this product that is made to keep you addicted for life. There's a certain, I mean, there's people that, I think this is crazy. You can put like 10 Diet Cokes on a table. It's like, that's from Wendy's. That's from that's in a can. That's in
like
a bottle.
Like a Coke sommelier.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's insane. But people, are suckers for that because they've hit the addiction part of our brain, the dopamine of our brain. And you think that Diet Coke gives a shit about your health? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Right? They want your money and they want you, walking around with a Diet Coke. You're a free marketing for them.
Right.
They want your pocketbook. At the end of the day, they want money. And that's where a lot of the greed comes into it. But don't get addicted to stuff that is not good for you.
Right. And just to kind of go full circle with what you're saying about testosterone, for example, it's like there's all that stuff going on under the hood, and they all have to do with your habits, behaviors, and your environment. And, for me to prescribe to you something that's going to just mask a symptom of a problem that you're just going to keep perpetuating with your lifestyle would be to you and to me as well. Like, I don't know if I want to use the word malpractice, but it's like, it's just like, malfeasance. I don't know. It's just totally being ignorant to the problem and actually helping the person. So, and I think that just to piggyback on what you were saying about traditional medicine, and I do sympathize with the doctors that they're beholden to these HMOs and insurance companies that dictate their recommendations. Like, hey, I want to test my testosterone, doc. Well, sorry, your HMO is not going to pay for it. So no. Well, doc, I can't get an erection. I have low energy. I have no confidence and I'm suicidal. It's like, well, think about it. I'll find out. Or, it's completely bananas. So, getting out of this mold and practicing this version of medicine is just so refreshing to hear. And it's so needed.
Yes.
And, I think I would like to learn a little bit more about like, you being able to help people from a grassroots effort of like lifestyle, but then also coming around the backside and helping them medically if needed. So what are some of the things that you're seeing, like when you're able to help people recover from, let's stay on insulin resistance, for example, and there's all kinds of follow-up from that, right? There's, low testosterone, but then there's gut issues and there's brain issues and all that. What type of, what are your favorite supportive medical interventions that you use with people that are like evolving their health and becoming like a healthier, version of themselves?
Yeah. I still go to lifestyle. I still think we still underestimate the power of lifestyle. Huge intervention, sunshine, getting outside. Is it so key? But going back to the pillars of like medical things that you can't do kind of like on your own. Talking about one of the pillars of sleep. That's one of my big ones. Every single low testosterone symptom that you can come up with, low libido, poor erections, stress, insulin resistance, insomnia, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, those are obviously far out on the psychiatry side. But if you're not sleeping at night, that has to be fixed. Like you're not going to recover. You're not going to exercise. There is no purpose of getting started, in my opinion, if you have issues with sleep. So I just did this myself because I'm like, all right, well, hey, I need to figure out my sleep. I think these wearables, like I've got a Garmin that works, Aura, Whoop, even a Fitbit. Yeah, all these things, they work. This Pod 8 Sleep, which I need to, I want one of those so bad.
Those are cool, yeah.
I know, but you can get so much data on how you sleep based on those wearables, and those are cheap. But I always like to recommend a sleep study. If you have sleep apnea, I do this all the time because I'm in my office, which is this doghouse box, right? But I always do this. I like literally take my hand and I like throw it through the camera, like, and I'm trying to like grab your throat. And I go, all right, what's your reaction if I were to do that? If I go grab Dr. Ryan's throat, what do you think he's gonna do?
Well, I'm gonna fight back.
Yeah, you're gonna fight back. You're gonna freak out.
Yeah.
Guess what? I'm essentially doing that, or you're doing it to yourself 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times a night.
Right. Choking yourself out.
You're choking yourself out. It's like a rear naked choke. You're just like locking it out.
Jiu-jitsu match all night. Yeah.
and you don't think that that's going to have some health consequences?
It's bananas.
It's huge. So I like to do the interventions that are going to make the most difference. And I think improving your sleep is so key. It is the ultimate superpower. If you can sleep 7-8 hours of actual like restful sleep, get deep sleep, get that REM sleep, you are going to solve so many of even your lab issues of low testosterone, insulin resistance. Just get a good night's sleep. And if we got to get a sleep study, that's a great bridge to getting you healthier. And then I like to work with, like, I just started working with like a more of a holistic functional dentist that specializes in the airway. If you got to get an oral appliance and pull that jaw forward, that's what you got to do. You know, evaluate your airway, get an x-ray, a CT of your actual airway to see if you have issues, see an ENT if you got a septal deviation, you know, if you got polyps in your nose, or if your turbinates are just like so wedged tight in there and you're just like breathing like that all night long. Mouth breathers are super, super unhealthy. So you got to focus. Like, this all just goes back to the basics. You got to nose breathe. You got to get a good night's sleep. Oh, and the big one, the elephant in the room, no pun intended, is weight loss.
Weight loss, yeah, exactly. Don't forget that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you got a huge weight on your neck in the middle of the night, it's gonna sit back on there. You gotta get rid of that. So
yeah, I think sleep issues is the number one underrated, I think, health problem. Like you were saying, like the least practiced human trait is consistency, right? Like consistent restful sleep. It's an epidemic across, probably the world, but the country for sure.
Yes.
And just getting that restful sleep and that recovery. And that's something, I talk a ton about. And I'm sure you've done lab work with a lot of shift workers. Some of my most unhealthy patients are nurses that do graveyard shifts, just the hormone dysregulation and coming back to insulin resistance. I see a ton of just like triple digit fasting blood sugars, just from messed up sleep in general, like tons of it. And, that repeatedly over the course of years, will eventually cause you to be more overweight, more, obviously hormone dysregulated, and eventually you can end up with, serious diabetic issues, cardiovascular issues, and all that. So
100%. The risk of cancer is higher. We know this. The risk of heart disease is higher. We know this. And if your circadian rhythm is off, man, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I agree.
Fix that. I got one of my best friends is the ER doc, and he was working nights, because you get paid a lot more to work nights, right? Nobody wants to do it.
Nobody wants to do them, yeah.
Right. So that was like his justification. But I'm looking at him and I'm like, dude, you got kids, you got a wife that loves you, and you're unhealthy. You're starting to drink, you're becoming best friends with Jack Daniels as soon as you get home. And you got to fix that, man. Like, you need to fix it now. And I think and I talked to him, and he was already transitioning out of nights into days. But I'm like, dude, you have no idea how big that is for your health.
Oh yeah. So for sure.
Yeah,
it's massive. So you hit on a lot of those big pillars. What are some things, because I know you're big into optimization as well, right? So human potential optimization. I'd love to hear your take on some things you're excited about when it comes to like human optimization and potential.
Sure. The human optimization that I'm like all encompassing right now is like the lab work. We can know so much in serum labs, and we just keep stacking on this. We could do gut tests, which are really, really cool to check out the microbiome. full body MRI from Prenuvo is super, super cool. That might be my parents' Christmas gift. That would be the most expensive Christmas gift I think I ever got my parents. Maybe one of these days, maybe it's a write-off.
Right.
So I think diagnostics are huge. The Clearly scan, we got the elephant in the room is that everybody, or the highest cause of death in America is heart disease.
Yep.
So evaluating the heart, looking at a coronary CT scan with contrast, looking at the neck, the ultrasound of your carotids, looking at plaque in there. Like I mentioned, the full body MRI, we love Gutsummer for a gut test. We love just like the serum labs. You can tell so much. And then what I just personally did was a DEXA scan.
Yep.
That's a cheap, easy one that you don't need a prescription for. You can just sign up and do it. And I was like, I just got mine done. That was going to be one of my next Instagram posts, but just putting it on there, that's so easy. You can tell so much of if you see a visceral fat on your DEXA scan, that's more than a half of a pound or 5 pounds, half a pound, you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble because I can almost guarantee you what your labs are going to show.
Sure. Absolutely.
So that's a cheap, easy one. I paid $150. I went downtown and got it done at a medical practice. It's a DEXA scan that we think about for bones, right? Bone mineral density. But if they have the right software, they can look at your body fat, look at your visceral fat, look at your lean muscle tissue.
Bone density.
10.7% body fat. So
that's you, doc. Stud. There you go.
Yeah, I want to practice what I preach, right? I want to
same here.
I never not from a vanity perspective, but I want, when I get on the call, I want somebody to look at me and be like, all right, that guy is actually doing what he's telling me to do.
Yep.
And I had a bad run-in with a cardiologist in residency. It was a really, really sick patient. We had to consult a cardiologist, and basically this person was dying of heart disease, right? We consult the cardiologist. He comes in, I'm sitting next to the computer, and I look over at him and he's talking to me and he's like, yeah, that person should have done X, Y, or Z, should have taken better care of themselves, for so many years. And I'm like, I judged him so hard. And it's I know that's a sin. We should not be judging people. But I judged this cardiologist so hard because he was 300 plus pounds. And I'm supposed to be taking advice from you on how to get healthy.
Right.
Come on, man. Be an example to these people. So I've always just stuck with me. I can put myself there right now. So.
Yeah. I love the saying that, what you say, who you are speaks so loud, I can't hear what you say. Right? Meaning that when, and you know what, we're creatures, we're natural, we're mammal species, right? We're wired to judge, right? It's a natural defense mechanism and whatnot. And I think that when you're somebody who is speaking about, health and longevity and all these things that you want people to learn from and practice, I think it's really important too, to just hey, I should be this image of what I'm speaking about. Right.
Yeah.
I just think it's so much more powerful, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's same thing with you. It's you're freaking ripped. I would want to get adjusted chiropractically from you too. Right.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
You got to practice what you preach.
I agree, man. We definitely align on that for sure.
Yeah.
So that's awesome, man. I'm a big fan of diagnostics as well. I got my DEXA done last year as well. They had actually a VO2 max and a DEXA.
Oh yeah, that's another big one I missed.
You should do the VO2 if you haven't done it.
Yes, I personally haven't done it. I follow my watch on that, which I try to measure, but I haven't done the actual treadmill with the Bane mask on.
Yeah, it's a trip, man. I definitely push myself harder knowing that I'm being measured. So that's another
Absolutely.
big,
Well,
big principle.
that's the only way to change. If you don't know where you're at, how do you know like where you get to where you want to be? Like how you got to measure it. And
Right.
that's why like I love doing like quarterly labs on people.
Mhm.
Like get checked.
Yeah.
More people.
The Hawthorne effect, right? When people know they're being measured, they're going to absolutely, take more action and be more accountable to, what they're doing. That candy you're talking about on the counter, maybe they are more motivated to like, you know what, I really got to get this out of my house. Like
Yes.
Dr. Russ is going to see my labs in 2 months. I don't want to let him down.
Crack the whip on you too.
It's awesome. Well, Doc, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I just wanted to wrap up with, is there any one last thing you want to put out there for men and women, just like anything they can do today to like really help themselves optimize their performance, their health, their recovery? What's kind of the number one thing?
Yeah. Well, there's so many things.
I know there's a lot.
That's actually like a good point to make is like there is not one thing. There's a lot of people out there that are be like, all you need to do is just take a methylated B vitamin and your problems go away.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. Okay. That is one cog in the wheel that's going to get you to where you need to go, but everything has to be firing on all cylinders, but you got to start with something. And I say you start with your why. Like, why do you care? And if you can't see who you are in 6 months or what you look like in 6 months or a year, then how are you supposed to change? You got to be able to envision like what you want for your health. And I can help you come up with that. I can tell you that like anything is possible. If you want to come off of your meds, hey, great. Let's see what we can come off with. Some of them, yes, some of them, no. But either way, we're going to try our best to get you as bare bones as possible. If it's like weight loss, hey, we can help you out with that. I mean, you and I prescribe peptides all the time, and I love them. They're changing the game.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot, we know this, we can't just give peptides to people.
Got to do the work.
Yeah, you got it. We're leading you to water, but you got to drink.
Right.
So, if we give you a peptide, you have to change your lifestyle. You got to start doing strength training, or otherwise we got a bigger mess on our hands.
Yeah,
so
absolutely, man.
Just basically, if you can simplify your health, find a doc that speaks the same language as you, and don't make it so complicated. If you don't know what you're eating, you got a big problem. And one last thing too, alcohol. We didn't touch on alcohol.
It's big.
It's huge. And there's so many other podcasts out there and like information on social media where you can justify your drinking, which I think is just asinine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling you that I'm not ever going to drink again, but it's very occasional.
Yeah.
And I like the other day I wrote down this for a patient. Like I wrote down all the labs that I could just potentially think about of negative that are going to happen negatively. And there's no side here that has a positive lab finding.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero.
It's a net.
On like the lifestyle problems, like what it actually caused by symptoms. And it's like, don't tell me that this is healthy for you.
Right.
The only thing that you could potentially say is healthy for you is that you're hanging out with your friends and your cortisol is down, but it's going to go up the next day because you didn't sleep that night.
Right.
But quit justifying that alcohol is healthy for you, because it's not, and it's killing most people. And so many people became alcoholics after COVID because they had nothing else to do but drink. If I had a dime for every person that told me that since COVID or, ever since the pandemic, I've been drinking, I'm like, bro,
it's over. It's over.
Years ago. It's been over for a long time, and you're still an alcoholic.
Wow.
And that is one I tell people, I'm like, you are like a balloon. And if I get you to stop drinking, it's like a pop in the balloon with a pin. You're going to be so much healthier. You're going to lose more weight by dropping alcohol than me putting you on, Ozempic or Zepbound, any of these GLP-1s that we love to use. But stop drinking alcohol.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I think that's one of the main things with my program. I tell guys like, hey, if you just stop drinking, if you that's the only thing you did, you don't change your nutrition, your movement, nothing, you'll lose 10 pounds in a month. I guarantee it. There's like
Easily.
10 pounds off your frame comes off. I've seen it every time. It's not even a question.
It's that dramatic. It's like popping
Mhm.
somebody with a pin. Like
Yeah.
you deflate.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
So Doc, start with your why. Make sure you're pulling the big levers, right? Sleep,
Yeah.
sex,
Yeah.
nutrition, training, and sleep and stress management, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that's what we got to do. So if the listeners want to learn more about Dr. Russ, where do they go?
You can follow me at the Farmer's Doctor on Instagram. That's
The
where
Farmer's Doctor. I love that.
Yes. I'm trying to put out as much simple content as I can come up with, and also take you behind the scenes at my little mini farm I got going on over here.
Yeah, I love following you, man. I love seeing your posts with you tending your farm. It's amazing.
It gives me so much purpose. I absolutely love it. I love reap what you sow. Like I love cooking 8 eggs a day. We go through a lot of eggs here in the Van Maele house. So
hey, we got a national egg shortage right now. So dude,
I know.
Those are like gold.
Dude, I know. I just heard about it because we don't buy eggs, right?
No.
But yeah, it's awesome. Let's do this again because I want to get more into the weeds with
dude.
Get into the weeds on peptides and get into the weeds, especially on these GLP-1s of what people are, the misinformation and what they really need to be doing.
Absolutely. Let's do that ASAP because I think that's massive. Yeah. So we'll talk more specifically about the hormone op and the peptides. I think it'll be huge. So
I can talk for hours about that too. So
love it. Well, thanks so much for being with us, Doc. So if you're serious about weaponizing your body and mind, you got to give this guy a follow, and appreciate you being on, Doc.
Thanks, Dr.
You bet. Talk soon.